Oh, welcome back. Mike from Canavan Wealth. I had a couple of questions during my March monthly seminar, which was on risk. They came up kind of current event related. I'm trying to encourage folks to send in questions. So I was going to answer these two questions. I answered them in the seminar, but I was also going to answer them here. It's a lot about what we've been talking about. That seminar was about, how the industry has changed from a risk perspective, especially around bonds. And it was a perfect lead into the Silicon Valley Bank, kind of banking problems in general that we're facing right now. And the question was, do I think that this problem with, Silicon Valley Bank and now what's going on with Credit Suisse and First National, is this going to become a banking problem? Uh, I don't think it will, but I can certainly tell you that it worries me that it could, right? We financial advisors are not immune to worry. In fact, we probably worry more than our clients could ever possibly guess. But it's our job to not be emotional in this. I think the real answer is already has in a little way, right? Credit Suisse and First Republic. I don't think we'd be talking about these if we didn't see the banking problems that we saw out of Silicon Valley Bank. I think Silicon Valley Bank and the other couple of banks that kind of went down at the same time were somewhat unique, specifically in that their client base was very common throughout their kind of book of business. Meaning, in Silicon Valley Bank, they largely dealt with tech startups, businesses, and that was most of their client base. And when you have a bank that deals with a very specific type of client, then when a client has a problem, most of your clients are going to have the same problem, which is exactly what happened. It kind of got them. I did a video on this. You can go back and watch it. So, are there other banks that have risks similar to that? They are. I'm not sure we're going to see the same result there. And I think the Fed response has been pretty good. Of course, it's very political. So it's certainly the biggest concern that I currently have for the economy is what's going to happen with this, specifically in interest rates. It's weird going through a banking crisis, and yet the market's been up 2 of the last 3 days. And yesterday, although it started really nasty, has not been that big of a deal. It was not that big of a down day. So this is all around interest rates, right? And I cannot imagine that this is not going to weigh on the Fed's decision around raising interest rates. The European Central Bank just raised theirs 0.5%, but they're a lot further behind in this process than we are. So that really doesn't surprise me. The Fed is not only worried about raising interest rates in the face of what's going on, because the whole reason that a lot of these banks are in trouble is because their treasuries are underwater because of the historically high interest rate hikes that we've seen. It's not only that, but they are also worried about not raising interest rates and what that may look like from a kind of public perception, right? So it is the Fed's job to come and tell us that everything is okay, but that doesn't make me feel better when they say, everything's fine, right? Because they were saying all of that through 2008. Unfortunately, a lot of things in the financial world, it is often the answer of it's too early to tell, too late to do anything about, right? And it doesn't mean that we can never do anything because it's always too late. It means that you need to be in the proper risk portfolio for you before the bad events happen, right? You need to be properly positioned for any event that's supposed to come along, which is often why when the markets are doing really great, we don't just put everything in the most aggressive so that we do well while the market's doing well. Similarly, when it's doing poorly, we don't just put everything in conservative investments. So you have to be in the right portfolio before the news hits. So do I think that this is going to spread to the rest of the banking industry in a major way? I do not. Could it happen? It absolutely could, right? Only time will tell. The second question was around the war in Ukraine. Jump back to this. It was pretty much, what is the long-term economic impact you think that we're going to see out of the war in Ukraine? I think the good news here is that it was not as bad as we thought it was. The energy infrastructure was incredibly nimble to respond to, Europe not wanting to buy fuel from Russia anymore, and the economic sanctions on Russia, although I'm sure they're having a detrimental impact there, really is not affecting the rest of the world. So what is the impact? It is Cold War 2.0. We have undoubtedly entered a new Cold War, and the big, deciding factor here is going to be China, right? I don't think Russia, specifically Vladimir Putin, is really acting from a position of strength here. I don't think they're going to gain any. Even if they gain territory out of Ukraine, their kind of public image world is entirely destroyed at this point. They're really their only powerful friend is China, and that's really what this comes down to. China is in a very unique situation for two reasons. I think I've covered both of these on the channel already. The first one is that they are undoubtedly in the golden opportunity that if they want to regain trust with the West and be seen as a true world power, they are one of the only countries that I think can successfully negotiate a ceasefire in Ukraine, a peaceful resolution, because of their relationship with Russia. And we're going to see this, right? So China is, I think, I just saw a headline. I did not read the article, so don't quote me on this. I think they're going to talk with Zelensky and then they're going to meet with Putin like 2 weeks later. Whether that's going to turn out to peace talks, who knows? But everyone knows that China is the one that can bring this to an end because of their power simply over Russia as their last remaining powerful friend in the world. I hope that they capitalize on that because it would be good for relationships in the entire world if that were the case. The other important aspect to China, again, that they know is that they are very precariously placed in an economic situation right now that is not good. We've covered their demographics, how their population is now shrinking. I just covered in the last Mike Reed's Journal that happened 10 years before any prediction, right? So we weren't predicting China's population to start slowing down until like 10 years from 2019, and now it's 2023, and they're already in decline, which means the problem is getting worse, not better for them. You add on top of that their real estate problems. Just Google China real estate. These kind of state-sponsored building programs where people are buying houses and paying mortgages for 3 years before that it still isn't built. And the simple truth is a lot of their young entrepreneurs are leaving now because they are seeing what happens to successful businesses in China that get snapped up by the Communist Party. So China knows that they are in a very vulnerable position from an economic standpoint, and that these economic problems that are kind of troubling the rest of the world, inflation, interest rates, banking problems, they could absolutely crush China, right? And any type of sanction would be devastating for them. It would be bad for us, and there is not a country in this world that is not tied to the China economy, just like there's not a country in the world that's not tied to the US economy. So what is good for the goose is often good for the gander, or bad for the gander as well. So I don't worry so much about the Russia thing. It is absolutely horrific what is happening in Ukraine. But from an economic standpoint, that part doesn't trouble me. It really troubles me about the Cold War that is developing between China and the US. And China really has all the decision power there. The US has made its position very clear. And it's going to be up to China as to how they want to play this in the future. So if you have any other questions, please send them to my email, mike@canavanwealth.com. I cannot have comments in the videos for compliance reasons. You can also schedule an appointment or anything if you don't want me to answer it publicly, or just shoot me an email. All right. I hope this has been informative. I will talk to you soon. Thank you.